Chad, the insane jobs of medieval barbers. Barbers, as in like people that cut hair, or what? What are we talking about? Chad, lock in.
That were shocking and work our way towards the ones that were insane. Number 10, haircuts. Now, you're probably wondering, how on earth can cutting hair even be on the list? No, there wasn't a weird or disgusting method that medieval barbers used to cut hair, or anything like that. Instead, the thing that was disgusting were the haircuts themselves.
Um, that Benjamin Franklin
Surprisingly,
haircut.
haircuts were seen as a status symbol during the medieval period and were a quick way to identify a person's social ranking. This meant that a peasant couldn't just walk into a barber shop and request a hairstyle reserved for nobles and kings, since that would have instantly made him royalty. But let's cover some of the strangest haircuts from this time.
Should we go to it? What if? I wonder. Like sometimes I wonder, what happens if you just take a modern man and take him all the way back there, like with the clothes and with the haircut. How would they see him? How would they treat him? How would he be treated? Like I'm generally like curious about that.
Period, so you can see exactly why this belongs on the list. Let's start off.
What the fuck?
See exactly why this belongs on the list. Let's
Damn, they've been fucking they shit up. They got the face Banks fucking haircut. They got the brother Banks haircut. God damn. Imagine you pull up to the barber and be like, yo, fuck my shit up. Just like this. Gotta take the alien and burn him. Oh wait.
start off. The tonsure haircut. This haircut was given to priests, monks, or any religious man to symbolize their commitment to
Why is there a fat bird in the back?
their faith. Obviously, a timeless hairstyle that is still worn today. The Norman haircut. This was a practical haircut worn by knights and soldiers that made wearing chainmail under their helmets a bit more comfortable. The cropped bowl cut.
God damn, they was fucking a shit up back then.
This wasn't your typical bowl cut we all got as a child. This was cut a bit higher up on the head and was a hairstyle so popular that it transcended social classes. Then of course there was the medieval bob, the beaver tail, the big boy bowl cut.
Did these people... Is it the art style or people actually look like this back
Then of
then?
course there was the
This is an art style, right?
medieval bob, the beaver tail, the big
Surely these people...
boy bowl cut, the zatsara, and of course, the bald cut, which was popular among those crawling with lice. Number 9,
the
enemas. Enemas are an injection of
What do you got him bent over? What do you got him bent over there?
fluid directly into a person's back door. In the early medieval period, enemas were created using a tube that attached to an animal bladder,
An animal bladder?
which was hand squeezed to pump the liquid into the patient. But eventually,
And what liquid are they pumping? Are they using the bladder just to hold the liquid they need to pump? Or they
a
actually...
tool called a clister was invented. The most common mixture used from ancient times through the medieval period was salt water, which was believed to relieve constipation and work as a disinfectant. Water mixed with chamomile,
And did it work?
rosemary, wormwood, marshmallow root, and many other herbs were also very popular. But sometimes these herbs were mixed with wine instead of water, which made the appointments a lot more enjoyable.
I forgot. You can get drunk if you put alcohol up your booty hole.
For those who needed something a bit stronger, they were basted with pure vinegar or wine, which was believed to cleanse a person's intestines, align the humors,
God
or
damn.
cure internal rot, which is obviously caused by crossing the lake of rot. Another popular mixture involved being pumped full of olive oil or
They using an animal bladder. They're using animal bladder. They're using animal bladder to pump olive oil in your asshole.
animal fat, which was meant to lubricate the intestines and soften stool, allowing it to flow freely. Then there were broth and milk enemas. These were given
Milk.
to weak patients who needed nourishment, which we have to give them credit here. They were so close. Wow, that smells amazing. Oh yeah? Nah, it's pretty good. It's actually my grandma's recipe. Oh, that's awesome, man. You want to try some? No, it's okay, man. Thank you, though. Thank you. No, seriously, it's my treat. Well, if you really don't mind, it does smell really good. Ah, don't be silly. Of course not. Number 8.
What was he blushing like that?
8. Incision and drainage. Well, that was quick. And just like that, we take a dark turn. During the medieval period, if you were unlucky enough to have a boil, an abscess, or really any real swelling of any kind, you would go see your doctor, who would have pat you on the back, turned you around, and sent you in the direction of a barber surgeon. After all, the reason barber poles are red, white, and blue is to symbolize blood, bandages, and veins, letting the public know that surgery was performed inside. Unlike doctors, barber surgeons were very skilled in handling blades and were hands-on with many different procedures, as you will soon see. Let's cover the 2 types of ailments or symptoms that would have required you to be drained like a can of beans. Boils. If a patient showed up with a boil, a barber surgeon would check for the following. Is the lump painful? Is it enlarged? Does it have pus? Yes to any of those questions was good enough to begin draining. This was done based on the belief that releasing pressure would prevent the infection from spreading deeper into the body. Abscesses that looked infected were another common condition that required drainage. Here, the barber would check the following. Did the area feel hot? Was it red or tender to the touch? If so, it was considered ripe for incision. Then, of course, any injury or swelling that looked infected would also be drained. The procedure often made things much worse, leading to deadly infections, sepsis, gangrene, or death. Today, we all know that the unsanitary blade was the most dangerous part of the procedure. Number 7. Broken bones. During the medieval period, broken bones were adjusted using the best technique available at the time: eyeballing. If someone came in with a broken arm, a barber would first diagnose the patient by touch, squeezing and feeling around before...
Shit, you ever broke a bone? I be drinking a lot of milk when I was a kid. I never broke a bone.
Deciding, yep, just like I suspected, it's broken. This is when the barber would manually adjust the bone back to its original position the best he could, before bandaging the limb to a wooden splint to keep the bone in place. This is what that would have looked like. Around the 2-week mark, the patient would return to have a cast wrapped around the broken bone, made of cloth soaked in wax, clay, or wet flour, which would harden and further immobilize the injury.
Damn, that guy got gone so fast.
And around the 10th week, the cast would be removed.
What happened?
And if the patient was lucky, he would have a healed and straight bone to rehabilitate. But of course, that wasn't always the case. Crooked bones were very common and often resulted in lifelong crooked limbs or disability. But one of the most painful scenarios was when a patient suffered broken legs that didn't heal properly, resulting in them living the rest of their lives as a short king. Number 6. Bloodletting. Bloodletting was when a person had blood intentionally removed from their body, either through an incision or from the use of leeches. The sicker a patient was, the more blood was removed. If the patient had blood removed but their symptoms didn't improve, well, that simply meant they didn't drain enough. Blood was removed based on the belief that illness was caused by bad blood in the body. But sometimes, if a barber suspected a patient of having too much blood, yeah, that called for a draining as well. I know what
Too much blood. Chat, y'all got too much
you're
blood?
thinking. What symptoms would you have to be seen as having too much blood? Well, any of the following: red flushed skin, fever, inflammation, headaches, dizziness, nosebleeds, bleeding gums, or simply being in a bad mood were all considered signs that you
If you're in a bad mood,
were hoarding blood.
better take your
These were the
blood.
most common locations for bloodletting. Yes, I know. Now, the good news was that those
They take blood from you, did?
who had money could pay for someone to come to their home and place leeches on them, which was a painless form of bloodletting. Some even went as far as saying it was relaxing, which meant it carried the risk of accidentally falling asleep and waking up at low HP. Number 5. Cauterization. Here, a patient who was severely injured and losing blood was brought into the barber shop, where the barber would take a red-hot iron tool and press it directly onto the patient's open wound, applying constant heat until it formed a golden brown mahogany crust with a slight char, then waiting 5 minutes for the juices to redistribute before enjoying. If the barber nailed the crust, it should have stopped the bleeding, hopefully saving the patient's life. But sadly, oftentimes the pain was so agonizing that patients simply died from shock. Really quickly, let's cover the most common spots where cauterization was used, and you'll see exactly why people passed out or died from the pain alone. Hemorrhoids. Yeah, you know what? I'm good.
You get hit. They put a hot ass rod in your asshole.
We could just end it there. Number 4, tooth extraction. Another skill barbers had to master was tooth extraction. Now, surprisingly, tooth decay and infections were not as common as they are today, since refined sugar was rare and expensive. Nobility were more likely to suffer from tooth pain caused by cavities, since they were actually able to afford sweets. But the majority of teeth extraction still came from peasants and commoners, not from eating sweets, but because they cracked their teeth eating stale bread. Those who could afford fresh bread easily avoided this problem, and instead cracked their teeth on small rocks, since flour was commonly ground with stone mills that frequently chipped. During this time period, tooth pain was believed to be caused by tooth worms, so to drive them out, people tried the following: holding their head over an open flame, holding their heads over smoke, and the scariest one, applying heated metal directly to the tooth. But once they realized that none of these worked, they eventually arrived at the barber shop in hopes of finding a permanent solution. If the pain was subtle, you might get something like an herbal tincture made of garlic, vinegar, sage, and wine applied to the outside of the jaw.
Thanks.
Which obviously did nothing but make you smell like an uncooked piece of chicken. If you walked in with severe tooth pain, then you could expect absolute hell. Tooth extractions were one of the most common procedures and were quick and brutal. The barber would use either a tool called a pelican or a plier-like instrument to yank the tooth out, trying his best to not break the patient's jaw. And as the patient screamed in agonizing pain, a hot iron was thrust into the mouth to cauterize the wound and stop the bleeding. That was the moment many realized it just wasn't worth it, and simply passed away. Number 3, cataract surgery. Couching was a procedure in which cataracts
This shit crazy. Is she crazy
were
as
treated
that?
by displacing the cloudy lens inside the eye. Now, I know that might sound confusing if you're not an eye doctor or surgeon, but don't worry, I've done my research.
What happened?
After watching an eye doctor explain all the parts of the human eye, I can confidently say, I now know as much as he does. When a person has cataracts, the lens inside the eye becomes cloudy, which prevents light from being properly focused onto the retina. This can cause blurry or dim vision, glare, faded colors, double vision, or if you're really unlucky, complete vision loss. Really quickly, to fully grasp how devastating the medieval procedure was, you first need to know the basics of what this surgery looks like today. First, the eye is numb with eye drops. Then a tiny incision is made in the cornea. The cloudy lens is then broken up using ultrasound, removed, and replaced with a clear artificial lens. An easy procedure that only takes 10 to 20 minutes. Now that we're all eye doctors,
We can change our lens? Hold on.
let's talk about what would have happened if a person wanted to remove cataracts from their eyes during the medieval period. A
Whatever.
person walks into the barber shop.
Just like remove his eyeball?
No, a barber shop. Okay. Since there were no painkillers or numbing drops, patients were instead tightly tied down. The barber would tightly hold the eye open with one hand while inserting a sharp, needle-like tool through the cornea. The cloudy lens was not removed. Instead, the lens was
scrambled?
pushed into the eyeball as if it were a trash bin. An easy procedure that only takes 10 to 20 minutes. Sadly, only about 10 to 20% of patients actually received partial vision restoration, since the majority got eye infections or lost their eye completely, since tools were not sanitized
sit
during
down
this
like
time
this.
period. Number 2, trepanation.
Wait, so they really just use the they really use one thing, just put it, next guy just grab it, do it again, put it. They just use the same thing. They never thought about, maybe there's something dirty here. Maybe. I don't know. They never thought that? I never thought that. It's so crazy. This water is good. But never knew how to sterilize? Damn. I mean, it must be a doctor.
Trepanation is when a hole is surgically made on a person's head. These holes were manually drilled or sawed into the skull in an attempt to treat various illness or relieve symptoms. You're probably
They drill shit? They drill shit into your skull?
wondering, what type
God
of illness would
damn.
call for a hole in the head? Well, I'm glad you asked. If a person had seizures, convulsions, paralysis, psychosis, depression, hallucinations, migraines, headaches, being crazy, insane, or showing erratic behavior of any kind.
So half of y'all motherfuckers would be having holes in their head.
Those were all good enough reasons. Holes in the head were believed to release excess pressure. Another common belief was that the hole would allow evil spirits trapped in the skull to be freed. Here, a barber
What
would
about evil spirits going in? Since they have a hole now to go
take
into.
a sharp arrow-like tool and place the sharp end on
Then
the
they start
patient's
fucking
head, then
turning
quickly rotate it between his hands to drill into the person's skull. Again, without anesthesia or painkillers, the procedure was excruciatingly painful. It also took hours to complete, since multiple holes were sometimes drilled. But after the
fuck?
procedure, the person would have a moment to catch their breath before things only got worse. Since the person suffered an agonizing hole on their head for up to a year as it slowly healed. Well, that's if they even lived, since many patients died from infection shortly after. Number 1. Amputations. Amputations were among the most painful and deadliest procedures that barber surgeons performed during the medieval period. The most common reasons for amputation were injuries sustained by soldiers or complications from infection and gangrene. But let's talk about how the procedure was done.
Infection and gangrene? What is an infection and
Or
gangrene?
complications from infection and gangrene. But
Infection and gangrene.
let's talk about how the procedure was done. Let's say a soldier came into the barbershop from battle with a mangled arm. He would have been seated and restrained, either with ropes or by multiple assistants. The limb would then be tied off with a tourniquet to slow the bleeding. Then the speed run would begin. The barber would cut the skin and muscle using a knife or scalpel, then saw through the bone with a bone saw, chisel, or in an emergency, an axe. But for those who lived long enough to see their limb tossed in the trash, their wound would then be cauterized with a hot iron to stop the bleeding. The stump would then be wrapped with bandages soaked in wine or herbs before being sent home to recover. Many didn't. Since you guessed it, they died from infection shortly after. Hopefully watching this video made
This
you
shit is crazy, man. Think no one had to treat infection saved modern medicine? Modern medicianis?